Hello, Minnesota Vikings fans. I think we're live. I think we're recording, and I think you're listening to the Purple People podcast. I'm not sure. My name is Kyle. I am accompanied by Adam Carlson.
Hi, I was texting somebody, but I'm here.
Yes, Kyle Smith is here.
I, too, am on my cellular device, but I have the notes for this week, so watch out. I came prepared today.
I didn't. I was just texting somebody. I'm weak. I couldn't help it. But when it comes to weakness, there's one place where none of us fans are weak. That's our heart, which is purple and gold for the Minnesota Vikings. And we are here to talk about the team on episode number 259 of the show. This one is Whose O-Line Is It Anyway? We're going to be discussing some of the offensive line issues and situations, but as always, let's start things out with the quick hits. A lot of our first quick hits here in the segment have to do with Gil Brandt, who's been accumulating lists of the top players at each position over the course of the history of the NFL, and he put out quite a few. There was not a member of the Vikings on the list of the punt or the linebackers, which was kind of sad. And he also didn't do one for special teams as far as just all-around special teams players.
No,
so that was a little
Patterson.
Disappointing. But he does have the top kickers of all time. 4 of those appeared in the top 18 kickers of all time. That's a very high ratio right there. But a lot of these kickers bounced around the NFL at that time. It wasn't unusual for one to spend 2 years with the team, then shift over, spend a year with the team, then move to another. But there was Eddie Murray, who only spent 1 year with the Vikings, I believe.
Eddie Murphy?
Gary Anderson. You're either going to love Gary Anderson or you're going to hate him. And like we talked about before with Marshall, it's one of those situations where you either remember him for the one bad thing he did, or you remember the fantastic career he had despite the mistake.
Give a shout out to Adam.
It's all up to fans.
I believe it's you. It's on the Viking Age. It goes through the percentages of these kickers that we had, and like you said, for him at least, this is going to be like Jim Marshall. We talked about it last week. Oh well, he run backwards? Didn't Anderson miss our field goal? In that season that could have sent us to the Super Bowl. Look at the guy's percentage, man. It's ridiculous how many field goals and extra points he made. So it's not really fair. And it was pretty cool to see him on the list despite that hiccup that a lot of people noted him for.
Then there was Jan Stenerud, which he's best known, I think, for most people for his time with the Packers, even though he jumped around a lot to a lot of teams. And finally, Morton Anderson, who's going in the Hall of Fame this year. So lots of good kickers there on that list. And it is pretty astounding that 4 of them were at one Vikings, 4 of the 18. Like I said, it's a good ratio. And then Gil Brandt broke down the top 31 safeties of all time. I don't know why he uses such weird numbers, but maybe he just wrote down all the old safeties he could think of or something. I don't know how he figured this out. But he's made his top...
Don't question Gil Brandt. He's old, Adam. I'm going to have logic behind it.
Top 31 safeties. Joey Browner and Paul Krause made the list. Hopefully one day Smith on a list like this. You never know. Both Browner and Krause really plays in NFL history as well as Vikings. So you can't really complain with either of those there. Running backs were not a lot of options for Minnesota running back. Gil Brandt put together his list. The only one on the list from the Vikings was Adrian Peterson, who is, of course, still playing now with the New Orleans Saints for the 2017 season. But as I said, you never know. Maybe Dalvin Cook will turn out to be wonderful and be on a list like this in the future. And then, of course, the quarterbacks. There are 3 former Vikings on there. Them pretty obvious. Then you got Fran Tarkenton, the Mad Scrambler. Generations of Vikings fans just grew up hearing about his legacy or even watching it as it unfolded. And it's so much fun to go back and watch those just because of how much hell he gave defenses on a regular basis. And the last member of the Vikings on that list was Warren Moon.
Tarkenton was Russell Wilson in early days of the NFL, the way he would scramble around. And it's just amazing to go back and you watch him and you look at how ahead of his time his play was at the quarterback position. He's amazing. He's an amazing part of history for this team. And one of the rare jersey numbers that's retired by the Vikings as well, too, and very deserving of that honor.
Very true, very true. I don't think that we have anyone in the chat right now because this was an unexpected show. This was an unscheduled one as far as from... Oh, we do have people in the... There they are.
Yeah, I got a couple people with us.
Yeah, we got Eric Grandal joining us here. We've got Tyler as well. And I'm sure we got some other people hiding out a little bit there as well. We got some folks here talking about Ray Finkel.
Yes.
I got my hat last year up in training camp in Mankato, by the way. It was way too expensive, but I had to have it because it keeps me from getting sunburned. Seriously, guys, this hat was probably like a $60 hat.
Damn.
Got the Vikings on it, and you're in Mankato training camp, and I'm on vacation, so whatever.
That's robbery even for somewhere like an amusement park. I'm sorry.
That's bad, man. You should see me on free towel giveaway day when I was at TCF. Sun was beating down on me. I had like 3 of those towels on my head, just covering it up so that I wouldn't be all burnt up.
Absolutely.
The sun is not my friend, ever.
Nah. That's why the bucket hat was a wise investment for me.
Say $60 for about a week's worth of sunburn pain. Totally worth it.
Worth it.
Moving on, we have US Bank Stadium, the home of the Minnesota Vikings, being transformed for the X Games, which will be on July 13th to 16th. There's going to be a lot going on, BMX, Moto X, skateboarding, and there's going to be the X Fest as well, which has music from Remember, Flume, and Atmosphere.
All right, this is speaking of my youth. If you're anyone in the chat or anyone watches the show, please comment. I skateboarded for almost 8 years. Oh my gosh, it was my teenage years of my life. It was so good. So this is pretty cool, and this is this weekend. So let's see.
Absolutely.
Saturday is the 15th, so it starts Thursday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. This is pretty cool. I'll definitely be looking into that.
I believe it will be televised on ESPN, so you can check it out and see what's going on there.
Good bands on there, too.
I'm going to be out of town. Otherwise, I'd go check them out. Because if you haven't heard A Day to Remember, Flume, or Atmosphere, all 3 are really good bands.
Absolutely.
And then you've got Moto X, which they brought a bunch of dirt into US Bank Stadium. I don't know how many pounds it was, but it looks completely weird in there with no football field and the whole place being the racing course and then like the section for skateboarding. It's weird. I wish that I could share a picture for people listening to the podcast, but that's not how podcasts work.
Well, I know I got yelled at a long time ago for my background being bad, so next time you see me, I'm going to have a whiteboard back here, and I'll just draw pictures the whole time.
There you go. I like it. Up next, we have Stefon Diggs talking about how he can do more. He knows he can do more, but more importantly, he wants to stay healthy throughout the year so he can be more reliable. This was a statement where Diggs said that one of his priorities for this was to play all 16 regular season games and whatever the Vikings do in the postseason as well. Considering the Vikings' struggles with injuries and how they've really had trouble keeping strength and conditioning coaches over the last couple of years, for players to stay healthy and be able to play a full season, it really is a big accomplishment for the team these days.
I really like
the way, for as good as Stefon Diggs is, and he's cocky to go with it too, he's also very kind of humble in a way where he's always, I actually believe him when he says that these are the things that I want to get better on and I want to improve upon and I want to do better. I like that from any player on the team, and it's nice to see that, Diggs is going to end up being, if he's not already, a leader on this team for the other players, someone for the younger guys to look up to.
Adam Rank said that Stefon Diggs could be a fantasy football steal if you're looking at a wide receiver and he's not off the board in the early rounds. So especially if you're doing PPR, he could get a lot of looks. But you also have Adam Thielen, who's been talking recently about how his major goal is to to be on the field more often. And considering what the Vikings invested in him, the return they've gotten on their investment, and Thielen's just desire to do whatever it takes to win, I don't see that as being a problem.
I love it. I agree with Kyle. Stefon, you can see the cockiness on the field, but he loves the game. But he doesn't really bring that anywhere else. You see him on social media. He's a very down-to-earth guy. He's always in the gym, especially in the offseason. Up until now, everybody's taking a little vacation before training camp starts. And he's going around the world sharing it with everyone. But he definitely works his rear end off. So it's really cool to see, that he says, hey, even though I'm the number 2 receiver on this team, according to yards last year, most people look at him as our number 1. He's like, yeah, I need to play a full season, which is kind of a knock on himself. But I like that humility there.
Well, a lot of the players on the Vikings team, even if they did play a majority of the games for the season, played very banged up. Mm-hmm. Everson Griffin actually showed up at his OTAs still wrapped up from his injuries from last season, which is kind of scary when you think about it. But did I say Everson Griffin? I meant Anthony Barr.
Yeah, that's all right.
But yeah, Barr, he struggled last year, and a lot of it was kind of attributed to the injuries. And if it's still nagging him a bit, that's kind of scary. So I'm not really looking forward to seeing what's happened there, and I hope it was just precautionary wraps and stuff. Fingers crossed.
I follow a lot of the players too. Instagram, if you guys have Instagram, find the players. Just go to the Vikings. They'll tag the players. You can follow them individually too. I think Anthony Barr's doing fine because he's been working out really, really hard, especially putting on the little updates, little 24-hour updates on the Instagram story. So hopefully he doesn't have that again.
I need to get on the Instagrams and the Snaps chats and all that kind of stuff.
A lot of cool stuff in there, man. It's pretty cool when the celebrities and these athletes share on their day with the whole world.
People love that social media. We talked about ESPN a little bit earlier in a roundtable of 4 NFC North writers for the site. All asked who they thought the best newcomers to the division were, and Latavius Murray and Dalvin Cook topped the list. Of course, Dalvin Cook, the rookie that the Vikings drafted this year, and Latavius Murray, who came over from the Oakland Raiders.
This is interesting. I watched this video today on the way to work. Kind of like those were a tie for first. The second place was Martellus or Bennett. Came from New England to the Packers, from one amazing quarterback to another. Pretty notable. But I talked to my buddy about today, Packer fan at work, and we're just having a little discussion about what we talked about last week with Sam Bradford. He said, you know what, I really think that with Sam being under your offensive coordinator and having a full offseason to get familiar with the team, he's going to go off. Said Packer fan is, oddly enough, an Oklahoma Sooner fan as well, so he loves Sam Bradford. I said, you know what I'm really looking forward to? An improved O-line, which we're going to talk about today, and the fact that he can turn around to his left and his right on any given play and have 2 dependable running backs. Now, we all loved AP for however long he was here. He did wonderful things, but shifting to that new age running attack with 2 different guys who have 2 very different styles, that's probably my new favorite thing. But I like this choice, and it's pretty cool that the division as well, at least the writers, would say, yeah, this is going to be something to look forward to. I think it's going to be an amazing new look for us.
Multi-dimensional running backs. That's something that Vikings haven't seen a lot of in a long time. Excited about that. Let's see. Let's go on to the next quick hit, which I added because, honestly, there wasn't a ton to talk about this week, so why not talk about the WWE?
We add this
the
quick hit whenever possible, Adam.
Review. What's that?
I said we add this whenever possible.
I love talking about this stuff. That and the pay-per-view is called Great Balls of Fire, which I find hilarious. That's an awful, awful name for a wrestling pay-per-view. But the first match of the night with the former Minnesota Viking was Roman Reigns taking on Braun Strowman in an ambulance match. And sadly for Vikings fans and fans of Roman Reigns, Roman did not win that match, but he did get his revenge, just absolutely brutalizing Braun Strowman after the match. Of course, this is all for the show. Nobody got hurt. But still, it was fun to watch. And Roman Reigns and Strowman always put on a solid match. And Strowman is going to be a guy to watch for the future. He is a legitimate monster. A lot of fun. But the real big awesome match of the night came when Brock Lesnar took on Samoa Joe. People who follow me on social media know that I've always been a big fan of Samoa Joe. He's a bigger guy that can do things that people his size shouldn't be able to do. He's got that look for the mean streak, but yet when he's got a microphone in his hand, he says exactly what needs to be said. I was really excited when he took on Brock Lesnar, jumped him before the bell. The match was a little shorter than a lot of fans would have liked, but even though Brock Lesnar won the match with the F5, Samoa Joe looked really strong, and it sets up Joe for maybe a title run in the future, and Lesnar will probably end up facing Roman Reigns at SummerSlam. That's my guess.
And I still want to know how many Vikings fans out there accidentally have photos of Roman Reigns when he was with the team for that very short time during training camp. Just like, you know, saved on a hard drive someplace, and have absolutely no idea that the guy that didn't make the team, it was just a training camp body, former WWE champion, just insanely recognizable guy now. I just wonder how many people just have those photos out there. I would love for people to dig and just go see if you can find old photos of Roman.
That would be amazing. But these two guys have really made their way through the company, and they are two of the biggest stars that are absolutely huge draws. Whether you like Roman Reigns or not, he's got a large following, and even Brock Lesnar, people can't stand him or they either love him, but he's a big draw, big name, especially considering how he became kind of when he went over to the UFC and won the title over there. It's really cool to see these guys going on and just having success in the WWE. Being a wrestler and then moving on to football and then going to wrestling can be pretty good. Just ask those former Pittsburgh Steelers running backs, right?
Interesting in the chat, Eric wants to know, between Brock or Jared Allen, who would you put your money on? He says Rodeo Allen. That's really tough. I don't know. I would not want to mess with Jared Allen. We've seen how tough he is on the field. The play where, what was it, the Chicago Bear that he got into it with? And he just held the dude by the face mask. Just held him at bay. That's some draw to do that. I wouldn't want to mess with Jared.
You know what?
I don't know if there's a scarier man on the planet than Brock Lesnar.
You know what I loved? Speaking of Jared Allen, because it made me think of it. Remember, it was 2012 we made the playoffs. Unfortunately, we lost to Josh freaking Freeman and the Bucks at home. But Donald Penn comes up and just keeps going after the whistle and actually cut Jared Allen's nose. And then the next play, Jared Allen gets a sack on Josh Freeman. That's just like the defining play I remember seeing, because I was actually leaving to go overseas that day, and I watched it, and I was like, you know, Jared Allen must be way bigger than he looks on television, because it just to get past a big guy like that and just to have that much just like energy.
Was that the game where he was pretty much just fist fighting Donald Penn while they both had their helmets on?
Yeah,
that was the one.
Yeah.
That was the one where he held him at bay. He grabbed him by the face mask and held him with like one arm, and like Donald Penn did not move.
And it's an offensive tackle too. You know, he's not a small guy is what I'm getting at. So he's
no,
yeah,
like,
and he doesn't. Penn has a mean streak too. He's a guy you don't want to mess with either.
We got to talk about Jared Allen today. What a good show.
No, I've met Jared in training camp up in Mankato, and he's super funny, which I think everyone knows. And that's not an act. Like, that was just him all of the time, just completely clowning around. We talked to him about cooking steak, because what else would you talk to Jared Allen about? You talk to him about steak and food.
That's who we need to get to have a throwback. Just have Jared Allen come in for a game or two and be on 96 Questions with B-Rob. That's what we need.
Oh, no, you're right. He is legit one of the largest guys. He was sitting, they ride bicycles like to and from the facilities, and he was sitting on his bike, and down, he was one of the largest people I've ever been. It's something else, that's for sure.
All right, let's go on to our main topic, where ESPN's Jeff Dickerson was talking about the Minnesota Vikings offensive line, and he had some interesting things to say, because some of it came off as being complimentary, while other parts could be taken a little differently. So let's go in and talk about this quote here. He said, Minnesota's offensive line is better. Free agent additions, Rafe and Remmers, should be upgrades at tackle. And I know a lot of draft analysts gave high marks to third-round pick center Elflein, out of Ohio State. Throwing money at a problem doesn't always fix it in the NFL, but the Vikings have no choice. Their offensive line was such a liability last year, Minnesota had to be aggressive in the offseason. I feel the rest of the league will respect the Vikings' offensive line in 2017, and you couldn't say that last season.
I don't take any of that as negative. Not at all.
So let's take a look at some of these words here. Should and could are both interesting choices there. Gave high marks to doesn't exactly mean that he feels very highly about it. And also saying that he didn't really give any praise to any of the players on the offensive line last year, when really Berger did a fantastic job once again. And there were some other standouts that came in and played well. So there is some reason to, if you really want to pick this statement apart, there are some things that where you kind of say, well, Vikings did have some bright spots, but what he was trying to say, been preaching show, is that yes, the Vikings spent a lot of money on Rafe and Ram. Yeah, they probably aren't going to be all pros this year. They won't, but they're a lot closer to being the solid players the Vikings need at the tackles. That Matt Khalil got paid so much money that it's absolutely ridiculous. And Minnesota was able to bring in Rafe for fairly close to the same amount, and I consider Rafe as being an upgrade.
I would agree with you on that one.
It's really interesting to see how this is all going to work out. And let's talk for a second about the center position here, because a lot of the listeners know how much of a big fan that I am of Joe Berger. I really love watching him play. He's a strong player. He always grades out positively in both pass and run protection. And it's interesting to see him move away from the center spot, because with Elflein taking that spot and Berger moving to guard, Berger is actually more effective at guard than center. So we're going to see Berger in a much more comfortable position at right guard, where really your major job is to just go forward and knock that defensive tackle right on his butt, or hold him up as long as possible. And I think that Berger is going to excel there, especially since the Vikings are moving away from their man scheme into a blocking scheme. It's going to be really interesting, because this could really play to some players' strengths, and it could kind of mess with others. But especially
don't forget about Nick Easton as well too, who was a player that I really liked quite a bit, especially at the center position. And I'm not quite sure where he fits into right now, but I know that he'll be able to have a role on this team.
Well, Easton is still a young player, and I'm sure that they're going to open up the competition for center guard, even though Elflein will probably win it. So what we're pretty much looking at is Easton and Berger for that right guard spot, and then whichever one doesn't win it will be the backup guard center.
Right? And
the fact that both those guys can play any spot on the interior of the offensive line will help them out in a massive way.
It's a lot of talent. I know that you can nitpick about the money that they spent on the players that they brought in, but offensive linemen got paid. We've talked about this in previous shows.
Berger didn't get paid.
The guys that we brought in, though.
I know, but I'm talking about Joe Berger, who's a solid player, and yet these guards are getting record contracts, and Joe Berger still ends up signing for close to league minimum when he's been playing at excellent levels the last 2-3 years. Are NFL analysts or NFL franchises just not doing their homework on this guy? Are they letting him fall through the cracks, or what's the situation?
Someone's got to take a pay cut so that these quarterbacks and everyone else can sign these mega deals. Unfortunately, that means Joe Berger's going to take a pay cut. And I mean, I'm okay with that. Although I get your point, Adam. I mean, he deserves to be paid more than what he has. But
I know where you're going.
I know that
I know where you're going because Matt Khalil got paid, and we were so quick to get rid of him.
A ridiculous sum of money.
Too much for Matt Khalil.
This is why I don't take offense to that statement. It said, we had to spend money even though it wasn't sexy. I understand it. I didn't want us to throw a lot of money around anyways, but we were the 29th out of 32 teams. 29th best, almost, what was it, fourth worst down for the offensive line last year. If you fix the offensive line to anywhere between 18 and 17 in the league, you're almost in the middle, which is where I believe we'll end up. I think we'll end up about 18th as far as O-line, or 17th, maybe even 16th, to be right in the middle of the pack with the guys that we brought in. Because now you take TJ Clemmings, who just everyone just hates, completely hates, played out of position last year. He can shift and play where he's supposed to. We have a guy like you mentioned with Nick Easton. We brought in Pat Elflein. Let's see what happens with it. It can only go up. I mean, obviously, the biggest thing that we have to worry about is like we had last year is injury, but literally we can only go up. And if this unit can do what I think and what I just predicted, Bradford in the running game it's going to be even better than it was last year. And he got pummeled all the time. And the running game was the worst in football. So all this stuff is going to go up. So I like this article. I don't know. I can see maybe if you dig deep into it, like Adam was saying, that you could find some negatives around there. But I like the guys. And like Adam said, these guys aren't going to blow you away. We're not going to have the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. We're not going to have the Oakland Raiders O-line. But it's going to be an improvement, and that's all you can ask for because we want to make a playoff push, and I think we're going to do that. And this is going to be the first start to do that.
And they brought in guys who are reliable. Yeah. And you look at how bad we were last season on the line. Reliable is okay, and if you have to spend a little more for reliable, all things considered, because Sam Bradford is not the most mobile of quarterbacks to begin with, and there is some injury history with him. Now there's some injury history with Teddy Bridgewater, so you want to be able to protect your quarterbacks on this team for sure.
Look at the Vikings. They lost Matt Khalil. They lost Jake Long. They lost Phil Lodeholt. They lost Andre Smith. 4 offensive tackles who were starters in the NFL for long periods of time, all left the team this year and left a huge gap at offensive line. And the Vikings were sitting there. They don't have a first-round draft pick. They know that they have to get players to play at those positions. They legitimately had no choice but to spend money on the offensive line. It was just the case. But we did not end up talking about Alex Boone, who's been a little bit of an enigma. I actually expected Boone to come out and just play a lot better than he did last year. But I'm wondering how much of that was, being next to Matt Khalil a little bit.
And Alex Boone had a revolving door of players next to him all season long. I don't even think I could name the number of players that were in and out on the offensive line. At one point, there's a guy that we picked up from Jacksonville's practice squad.
And he started a game.
And he was actually pretty darn
good. He was all right.
He was actually not too bad. And then you look at, who the hell is the fact that Jake Long started for the Minnesota Vikings for 3 games? Who is ever going to remember that? So I don't know how fair it is to actually judge Alex Boone on last season.
I don't think he played awful. I just think he played under ours and his own expectation. And let's talk about something I learned about. How do you
know? You don't know because the line play around him was so bad.
And it's what you were talking about.
You don't even know.
The thing that I learned from paying attention is every little thing and studying something, because all you guys know, I love music. So I study everything about my favorite musicians. So I listen to things, and I've listened for over the years. I've been studying this for almost 10 years intensely. And they talk about chemistry on the line. And you think chemistry in the NFL, I'm thinking quarterbacks and receivers. I want Sam Bradford to be able to close his eyes and stand there, and it just be him and Diggs on the field, and he's like, all right, cool, run this, blah, blah, blah. And then he could just get it to him with his eyes closed, I didn't think about offensive line and be like, oh, well, I need to know what my guys are going to be. We had, I think, the third most rotation of players last year on the line, which is awful. And like Kyle mentioned, we brought dudes off the couch, off the street. So it's all about the injury bug. Literally, this is our worst enemy last year. And can you believe we finished 500 with all the crap that happened to us?
You were discussing team chemistry, and we actually had an Andrew Sandejo talking about how chemistry on the defensive side of the ball has helped them in such a big way, about how familiarity playing next to Harrison Smith and with having Xavier Rhodes there, bringing back Terrence Newman, Trey Waynes getting used to having his situation there, the familiar faces along the defensive line, and of course, Bonk Hendricks in the middle. There were a couple spots, especially that linebacker spot, that are going to need to be replaced. But for the most part, it's a familiar group of guys that know what to expect from the person next to them. And they know, okay, well, there's two players coming here. I know that the guy to my left is going to pick him up. So I've either got to chop here or block over there. It's really interesting to watch these players that have not had that kind of experience with someone else. Like Jake Long getting signed off the street and being a left tackle. Alex Boone has no idea what his play style is, what his strengths are, unless he's been watching a lot of tape on him, or they really went over things in practice and talked things over ad nauseum. So it's going to be kind of rough for a little while. It might be a little rough while they get used to knowing what to expect from each other on the offensive line, because it's going to be an interesting looking unit out there. But every move that was made to improve this offensive line was done for a reason, and I do believe that we are going to see some big benefits from both the passing and the running game thanks to those moves.
Guys, this is why preseason games are important and why you should tune in and watch preseason games. You can learn a lot about your team. You can see starters and you can see them building chemistry, and you can kind of get an idea of the direction the team is headed in. So it's important to watch some of the stuff that Adam's talking about. You'll get to see it unfold a bit.
I love the preseason for that reason. It's people working their buns off to do whatever they can do.
Can I just throw some numbers out since you guys did? I wanted to find a perfect time to throw this in there in the show. We are exactly 2 weeks away from there actually being training camp on the field of some sort. So it starts, the rookies will get on Sunday in 13 days, and then action will start. Some sort of action will start 2 weeks from today. 1 month from right now, preseason week 1, Vikings, August 10th against the Bills. And I saw this earlier today because tying my hometown a little bit, Luke Kuechly's an awesome linebacker, probably one of the best in the NFL. 59 days away from the season starting off. So football is here, guys. It's almost here. And this last couple of weeks just went crazy. It went so fast, but it's almost here. We're finally
if you go over to the Viking Age, we've been doing a countdown of each day. And the player that wears the jersey, if it's retired or what, and we are getting close. I mean, I remember when I started that thing out with 99, and I believe it was 63 today, so
you guys know, I worked retail for a long time. And I always told everyone that, as soon as you get past the 4th of July, and this is the same for football, as soon as you get past the 4th of July, it's basically time for fall to start coming out. You're almost at fall time at that point, and it's 100% true. Once you hit past the 4th of July, actual football news, we're going to be done with off-season fluff. We're going to be into training camp, and there's going to be and preseason, and we're going to be in regular season soon.
No more Gilbrandt countdowns, no Great Balls of Fire. We'll be talking a lot more football.
Vikings football. We'll be talking about Mobo. We'll get a chance to talk about Mobo. I know.
Will he play this preseason? We'll find out.
Yeah.
I know a lot of fans are really disappointed he didn't play in the preseason last year.
A little bit. I got his jersey for some reason. That was a bad decision. I should.
Hey, I got my Brock Lesnar jersey, so we all got jerseys for some reason.
Yeah, but yours is cool because he's Brock Lesnar. Who the hell's Mobo? No one's gonna care.
Hey, he's an international superstar, man. He was on ESPN. They brought him in, and he was a 6th round pick, and he was there at the draft talking.
It's crazy. It's a fun story, but it's crazy.
And let's go into our social media question of the week. We let Kyle Smith think this one up, so I'm going to let him handle it because I want nothing to do with this one.
So this is off the wall because we're right at the end of the season where there's not a lot. This is the part of the season where you reach in the fridge on a Saturday morning and you grab that gallon of milk and you go to pour it, and that thing happens in Friday where nothing comes out. So I'm sorry. But the social media question was, who will have more touchdowns in 2017? I like it because I like these guys right now to kind of have the same effect, even though I think one's going to do way better because I'm a homer. Minnesota's Dalvin Cook or Detroit Lion / former Minnesota Viking running back Matt Asiata, a.k.a. the touchdown stealer.
Yeah, the interesting part of this question is that you made it touchdowns, not yards. Dalvin Cook will have yards ran circles around Matt Asiata.
Let's talk about that because somebody had a really interesting comment, and I didn't even think about it, but this is pretty good. So Danny Yang, faithful to the show,
Absolutely.
Scott Conrad, and Matt Jubera all say Dalvin Cook easily. Brent Foster says now we're just being mean, so it happens.
Gotta be mean-spirited every now and then.
Craig Morley says Asiata blows hot and cold when it comes to touchdowns. Remember the year he scored 9 touchdowns in only 3 games? And then a couple seasons ago, he didn't score at all. So that was pretty interesting. I think he's referring to when AP was suspended. So I get it. It happens. We had to split it up between him and McKinnon. He said, hey, I didn't even mention Bernard Berry this week. Touche, Craig. So here's the interesting one. And I just want to don't shoot this to you guys and see what you think. Steven Kornberger says, Dalvin will make a strong push to become Offensive Rookie of the Year. Matt Asiata may not even be on the Lions roster when the season starts. Ouch.
I have heard that actually. If you follow Sideline Report, which is the fan-sided site for the Detroit Lions, it sounds like they are not as high on Matt Asiata as we think that he might be. In my mind, I thought of him as being an excellent goal line back, but considering the kind of offense that the Lions use, I might be overestimating his usage in their system.
I didn't expect that. I didn't expect him to take over. I forget the starter in Detroit's name. It's not because I don't like the Lions. I forgot his name, but he actually does fairly well. I would see Matt Asiata doing what he does here. He'd be number 2 or 3. But I didn't think it was going to be that bad that he might not make the team. Eddie Self says, I hope Dalvin, but Asiata is a goal line poacher, which is true. I mean, it's nothing that we haven't seen before. Him and Zach Line will come in and steal your touchdowns. Asiata, the veteran ground and pounder, will get the carries within the 10-yard line. The only way I can see Cook getting these carries is, 1, he shines early and adapts quickly, and if Asiata gets injured. Steven, I love the comment. It's not everybody's going to agree. I don't want that to happen. And I'm not going to think about anybody on the team getting hurt. I'm not going to think about anybody on any other team getting hurt. I think Dalvin Cook's going to turn a lot of heads. And I'll be honest with you. Here's my bold statement for the week to tie this in. I think this quiet injury that Latavius Murray has been okay. He had an ankle injury. We knew that when we signed him, whatever. Right. I think Dalvin Cook's got a leg up. And we don't have the offensive line that the Raiders had. Now, we talked about it being improving in the show today, which is fine. I think it'll improve to maybe middle of the pack. But we don't have that line that the Raiders do. I think with Pat Shurmur taking over and the way Dalvin Cook has so many uses, because let's look at it. Latavius Murray is a downhill runner, and that's fine. We could use one of those. But I think that's going to be the one disadvantage that gives Dalvin Cook the push. I don't know about week 1 because Latavius Murray is pretty dead set. He said that on Good Morning NFL that he's going to get the carry week 1. But like we've been saying the last couple of weeks, I think that's going to be the defining factor because Dalvin Cook's just been in it since he arrived, and he's been practicing and doing a lot of great things. I just think it's because he's like a Swiss Army knife at running back. So wanted to tie those two in there.
Yeah, when I first read this question, my mind automatically went to Asiata pushing it in at the goal line and Cook needing bigger explosive plays to get in the end zone. But the more I thought about it, the more I think that the Lions offense isn't going to cater to Asiata on the goal line the way that Minnesota was so predetermined to run the football any chance they got. So I do think Dalvin Cook's going to edge out Asiata. So that's my prediction anyway.
I agree with you earlier too. I think that if this were yards of any kind, Dalvin Cook's he's going to beat everyone because I think he's going to have all the all-purpose. I think he's going to lead our team in the rushing yards, all that good stuff. But as far as touchdowns, I just see that big playability that he had at Florida State. I mean, he's not going to rip them all the time like he had there because it's a professional league now, but he just got that explosive playability that none of the other guys we mentioned have as much.
Well, Cook will be a highlight machine. If you remember, too, Adrian Peterson has had a lot of great runs in his career, but he's had a lot of really dud runs, too, that have been either a yard or even negative yardage. Let's go on. Let's talk about next week's social media question, which we currently don't have one, but the placeholder one. Oh,
yes, we do. Should legit be the question.
We want to know which member of the Purple People podcast you would most like to share a purple and gold, not yellow, snow cone with, because I don't eat yellow snow.
Yeah, I heard that's bad for you.
My mom told me as a kid, avoid yellow snow. So purple and gold snow cone. Which one will it be? Will it be this guy? Which I'm pointing at me, so if you're listening. That guy, I'm pointing at Mr. West, or that guy, I'm pointing at Mr. Smith. We've also had some guest hosts, too. I mean, I guess you could pick one of those.
Yeah.
But it's been a while since we've had a guest host. Maybe we'll have to do that again sometime. Okay, so we've got Kyle. Do you have anything else that you want to add either, Kyle?
I do, actually. So the guys were nice enough to let me promote something of mine that I'm doing because I don't usually promote anything of mine. I have a really, really long and boring job. I say boring. I love my job, but it doesn't have anything to do with the show. But on my off time, I grab one of these things and I yell out words while I do stuff with this. So I entered a Chris Stapleton cover contest, and I pinned it to the top of the page because it's only going to be going on until Friday. To anyone that went and took 10 seconds out of their time to vote for me, I really appreciate it. There's actually a cash prize involved. I love that guy. These guys know that's my favorite musical artist ever, and he's a really big inspiration to me for singing. So if you're listening to the show, go to the page on Facebook. I have a link up. Just go and click on it. You can sort the entries by votes, or you can just look for the video, and I attach the picture so you don't get confused. Just click on it, click vote. I would greatly appreciate it because if I win this first place prize, I'm going to be a very happy person. Probably going to go on vacation. So I just want to say thank you for anybody that's voted, and if you haven't, if you would please, go check it out.
For those of you who don't understand how much this would mean to Mr. Smith, he has gone out of his way to meet this man in person. He's hung out with him in the past, and it was a life-changing experience for him, seriously. And you could be helping him to have just another amazing experience, and for that to happen for another Vikings fan, especially one who spent a lot of time helping to bring you some entertainment here on the podcast, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could go and give him a big old vote over there.
Thank you, guys.
And, of course, you know that I've got my work going on at the Viking Age. If you're listening to this, you might even be listening to it on the Viking Age. But I appreciate everyone who goes over there and checks out articles. We do our best to keep you up to date on anything having to do with the Minnesota Vikings. It's a little bit of a slow time, but we've got a great team over there that likes to have fun, speculate. And one of my favorite things going on right now is Adam Patrick, who I work with on the site. He's currently doing a series as to whether or not key players will be better or worse based on his evaluation and statistical history, whether they'll be better this year or worse this year than their previous year. And I highly recommend you check it out because it's really interesting, especially the stats that he was able to dig up for Sam Bradford. I thought that was really interesting.
Is that already out right now? The one?
Yes, it is.
I'm going to go read that right now.
And I also would like to plug my work over on Undead Walking. And I know that you guys may or may not be fans of The Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead, but if you do enjoy your AMC zombie shows, your comic books based on the series, your games, action figures, whatever it is, I'd appreciate you checking out Undead Walking, where I have broken down pretty much everything from the back-to-back Season 3 mid-season finale of Fear the Walking Dead, and now there's nothing for me to do for the next couple weeks until Vikings preseason football starts. So I'm going to be doing a lot of speculation, a lot of analysis, and right now I'm working on a Vikings Hall of Fame slideshow for the Viking Age, talking about every member of the Minnesota Vikings that is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So hopefully I'll have that out this week. I'm hoping to be a busy guy and keep myself busy in the meantime, and I hope that you enjoy what me and my teams are able to put out over on the Viking Age and Undead Walking. And Kyle West just wants you to check out his face.
Yes.
And his hat. He's got a glorious...
You better look at that $60 hat.
I'd wear that hat all the time if I spent that much for it.
Thought of this hat, but see, I have a tiny head. Here's the thing: you look at someone mentioned that Cordell Patterson used to wear one all the time.
He did.
Yeah, and you look at the players, and you're like, oh, it looks like a normal-sized hat on Cordell Patterson. Well, he's like 6 foot something, and then I get it, and it looks gigantic. Because I'm a tiny guy compared to, professional athletes.
We've got Eric Grindle in the chats talking about how he misses The Walking Dead, and I got to tell you, the big trailer for the next season, Season 8 of The Walking Dead, will be out here pretty soon, and it's going to be amazing. I've gotten a little bit of inside information about some stuff that we're going to see in the trailer, and I think fans are really going to enjoy it. I
finally started reading the comic book, Adam. I downloaded the digital version of the first issue because I've never read any of it before. And I think I'm going to spring for like the big, what are they, like $40 volumes that you can download?
The compendiums. They're real good. There's only been 3 of them, so you can get them pretty cheap on eBay or secondhand.
Yeah, I got my new Kindle. I want to just get them digitally right on that because it's really super easy to read through, and I like it quite a bit. It's very well wrote.
Oh, Eric Grandal, no spoilers in the chat. No spoilers in the chat. Oh, so much fun though. Now my mind's just racing with The Walking Dead.
It's the return of the governor, Adam. He's not dead.
There actually is a fan theory out there that the governor isn't dead, and I'm like, how? How?
He's gone. Is that a spoiler for Mr. Smith?
I think it is.
That far in the series yet?
Nope, that's fine. I'm already to season 4, so moving right along. I was actually happy.
Are you at the governor then?
I've already passed that. They're actually at the prison, and everyone is getting infected, but it's not from bites. That's where I'm at.
Oh.
Yeah. I
they just get some Pepto-Bismol.
I kept binging, and I was like, I have to stop. I have to leave something for me to do in the next couple of weeks when there's no football. So got to pick that back up shortly.
Oh, yes.
Some Pepto-Bismol, and then they're fine. That's the big payoff for that one.
But I would like to take a minute to thank everyone for tuning in, especially the people that came and joined us in the live chat on short notice. We're sorry we put the show together at the last minute, but we were planning on doing it tonight. We thought things were falling through, and we were able to get it out tonight instead of waiting till tomorrow when I wouldn't have been able to be here. So I appreciate all you guys for coming, as well as both Kyles for doing this when I'm able to be here. So thanks, guys. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely.
We do have our Facebook page and our Twitter at Purple People Pod. You can send us some messages. You can respond to our social media question, which I don't know if it's really going to be the snow cone question. We'll find out.
No, it will be. That's going to be our social media question.
Oh, this is going to be an interesting one. I can tell already. We're either going to get no responses or a ton of crazy ones. I don't know.
I hope it's the off season. We have to have a lot of fun right before the season starts.
Please,
so I want
nobody vote for me. Can you guys please vote for these two and just say really weird stuff in there?
No, you're going to get all the.
You're the handsome guy, man. You're the face of the. You're the face that runs the place.
The weirdest question. Like, I would enjoy a snow cone. Like, I was harassing Kyle in the chat earlier, just like, let's talk about the Twitter CEO and his hometown and how we want to move there, like all the California kids. Please, just put all your weird stuff to these guys, and let's just make the show just a complete laugh.
Fun.
Snow cone. No, you mean snow bone. Snow bone. Don't hang up. No. I love Blades of Glory. That movie is so much fun.
Get going.
Yes. And Jenna Fisher. Oh. That's a dream girl right there. But let's stop because we aren't talking about football anymore. We've moved on to just completely ridiculous stuff. But I'd like to thank everyone for listening. And remember to stay classy, Minnesota.